Thank you so much for your patience, and we hope that you all enjoy the event.
Thank you so much, Crystal, and thanks, MP. I would like to thank Mass Poetry for inviting me to do this event. I'm really excited about this one. All right, so I am going to share my screen, and I will be sort of monitoring the chat over my other monitor. So if you see me glance over there, I'm just checking to make sure. So please don't hesitate to ask questions if you have any, and do let me know. Okay, sorry, this one. Okay, yeah. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. We've got a lot of ground to cover. So I would, just like to say, if you do have questions, it's fine to unmute and ask. You could use the Zoom raise hand function, and of course the chat, and hopefully I'll get to them. So I think we have done the housekeeping, and we're going to go through some of the overall issues that we're going to be talking about. But first, a little bit about me. So I'm a Korean international adoptee. I grew up in Leominster. I publish in multiple genres. I write a lot of like literary, but also speculative things. I don't like the term amateur, but I was like a dabbler for years. Like I was one of the people who started writing when I was a child, and I kind of kept writing off and on. I finally decided to get my MFA in 2013. And this class is really for people who, like me, were hungry to become professional and have a writing career. And I really needed it back then. So I'm hoping that it's useful to people now who might be in my situation, who might have gotten an MFA or taken some workshops, but you don't know how to get started with some of the businessy stuff. And this coincides with my passion for opening the gates to others. I don't want to be a gatekeeper. I want to get rid of the gatekeepers and help people with their writing. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we deal with just in general. So one thing I hear a lot from people is, oh, I don't have any publications, so I'm not like a real writer, or I'm working on something, but I'm not a serious writer, or I'll do that stuff later when I need it. Okay, that's completely fine. But I assume that because you're here, you want to know a little bit about, okay, how do I do all these things? And I want to say, no matter what stage of your career you're at, and no matter whether you intend to always have a day job, which, okay, most writers have day jobs, right? So that's a really normal thing. It's the only a very few lucky writers can make a full living off of their writing. So you deserve to be here. You have something to say, you have something to share. It's going to feel a little awkward because just like writing a school report or talking about yourself in general, going on a first date, right, you're going to have to talk a little bit about yourself and what you're doing. And that means that, yes, you need to have the confidence to be able to articulate sentences about yourself. But thank you for being here today. That's a great step. Or thank you for watching this later. I would say it's really better to be prepared than it is to be blindsided. And just like our first drafts of our creative writing, maybe the first drafts are just a process to help you learn and get started, and you're going to make them better and better. But first you have to make them, right? So that's why we're here. Okay. So some basic things with privacy. This is another big barrier that I've seen with people. Some people don't like putting their information on the internet. They were raised in, maybe the pre-internet era, or they have had bad experiences on the internet in the past, which I totally understand. You have to do what feels good to you. That could be not ever putting a headshot, not ever filming yourself and putting it up on YouTube for people to see, not having contact info on the internet. So the only thing about that is, of course, if you want to build a writing career, a lot of publication opportunities are now online only or online first. So they are going to want your information. So this is a place for you to decide, should I use a pen name? Should I say thanks, but no thanks? If they want a headshot, an artist photo, right, of you. Should I try to make my social media accounts less accessible to random strangers? Should I have a boundary between my personal life and my professional life? Even should I trust places? Should I email them my writing, my creative work? Should I try to register for this submission platform I've never heard of before? Yeah, so it's a little scary. You have to do what is appropriate for you. Pros and cons, right? The more you're accessible, the easier it will be for people to find you. Like, I actually had somebody message me on Twitter this week, and it made my week because he was reading a story that I published 2 years ago. And he said, "This is so fantastic. I love it." I was like, "Thank you so much. That really means a lot to me." But on the other hand, yes, if you Google me, you can find my email. You can probably find my cell phone number. You can definitely find pictures and videos of me. So, you have to think about that for yourself. Some people, for professional reasons, maybe they have a career where a writing presence would not be the best thing for them because they have to stay professional at work. In that case, maybe a pen name and a separate identity is relevant. But of course, if you ever decide that you're going to stop using a pen name, now you got to get in touch with all those publications, or you got to say, "Oh, that was me, but I was writing as my alter ego, Marie," right? So it's just something to think about. There's pros and cons to that. It's not something that I can answer for you, but I would definitely say that for reasons that we're going to talk about later, it might be nice to have more of a personal social media focused account and then more of a professional one. And we'll get into the pros and cons of that a little bit more later. But I wanted to just put this out there. I know that it's something that people think about and they have different comfort levels with. Right. Okay. Rejections. Yes, when you send out your work, you're going to get rejections. They're terrible. I have gotten hundreds, probably thousands of rejections, not just for my work, but for fellowships, for positions I've applied to as a writer, for opportunities that I thought would be really good for my career, for grants, for money. Some of them hurt more than others. They don't really stop hurting. But for me now, I'm in a place where I have a strategy for dealing with them, and some of them don't hurt at all. It's just part of the process to me. So there's definitely some good strategies around this. And I was hoping that we might have time to talk about rejection and submitting a little bit at the end, but I don't know if we will. So definitely, I think I'll be sending my slides to you later, and you'll have my contact info. So if you have any questions about any of this stuff, you can feel free to reach out to me after this. All right. Okay, so we're going to get into bios. That's the first thing that you need, even when you submit work. So let's say you finished a story or a poem and you're super proud of it and you want to get it published. So something that they'll ask for besides your creative work is a bio, a biography of you. Now they want them in the third person. Normally they want pronouns with them if that's something you feel comfortable sharing. And I have here several kind of examples, and I'm gonna let you sort of look at them. And I'm gonna describe them, because one thing that I hear a lot from writers is, I don't have any publication credits, or I'm not a serious writer. I'm not a professional writer. I'm not a whatever it is, right? Because as writers, we have so much imposter syndrome, and we're really good at self-rejection, right? So here are some ways to hack your bio. If you don't have any pub credits, if you don't have anything you think is worthwhile, you do. Everybody does. You're a human being. All right. So that could be as simple as, "Hey, I'm a serious writer, even if I'm not published or I'm not whatever, and here's what I'm working on." Right. So I'm a writer and poet from Massachusetts. I'm working on a novel. It could be a little quirky, a little funny. about the place you live, about who you are, right? It could be, what's my profession? What are my hobbies? Okay, great. She's a writer and she does these other things too. Perfect. Or it can be super quirky and out there. People will remember you, right? So it can be funny, it can be serious. I have seen the gamut of them. Now, if you look at big top tier, like big name professional writers, sure, they're going to have like a super serious bio. And I do too, honestly. But sometimes if the opportunity is right, I will submit a quirky bio or I'll submit a different bio, right? If I submit a bio to a local pub from New England, I might mention that I am a native New Englander. If I submit a bio to a really fun anthology about pop culture, I might talk about my favorite pop culture stuff instead of being like, she received grants and awards from blah, 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 right? So it's great to have a 50-word third person bio. So instead of I am a Korean adoptee from Massachusetts, right? Maria S. Piccone is a Korean adoptee from Massachusetts. So that's the first step. All right. I have a document. I have a third person bio in various lengths. I have a 50, I have a 75, and I have 100 words. And it includes publication credits, honors and awards, my social media, and my website. I have different ones for different genres and word count. You don't need that. But it's great to start thinking about that process. Get your basic 50-word bio. And then as you get wins as a writer, you'll find more stuff that you want to add to your bio. So then, yeah, you could have a long and a short version. And the long version can go on any profiles of you, any magazines that will take a 100-word bio. A lot of them do. And then your short one will be, oh, this magazine has only given me 50 words to make a bio, or they want a 3-sentence bio. Okay, great. If you have something, you can keep editing it, you can keep adding to it, you can keep subtracting from it. If you have nothing, then when you want to submit or you get an opportunity and they say, hey, we need a bio right now, you're like, oh, I need a bio. What do I do? All right. So it's good to just start thinking about that. Right. So here's some tips. Okay. Keep a doc with your bios, update it from time to time. And then when you need it, you open it and you copy and paste whatever's relevant, right? So I know my process sounded complicated, like, oh yeah, she has like 10 bios in a document, but it's really not. It's like, oh, I got published for visual art. Here's my visual art bio, copy, paste, no thinking involved. So as you can see with mine here, it's an opportunity for you to share identity markers. That can be where you're from, what ethnic groups you identify as part of, other things you want to reveal about yourself. Market your writing and places to find it. That's your publication credits. That's your self-published chapbooks or novels. That's your stuff that's coming out soon. Tell people where to find you. They will read your writing, they will meet you, they'll be like, wow, I want to learn more about this cool person. And it's great if they have some links that they can follow up with, because then if you Google Dream City Review, Maria Piccone, my poem will come up. So without even doing much work, you can get some marketing in. Highlight cool places that helped you. People that gave you money, people that gave you opportunities. That could be really simple, like your local paper paid for you to do something, or you've been published there. It could be really great and lofty, like you got an NEA fellowship. Okay. People look at that and they say, I've never heard of the Watering Hole. What's that? They might Google the Watering Hole. And that's a way for you to say, hey, look, I'm a cool poet. The Watering Hole is a cool place for cool, awesome BIPOC poets. And somebody might find that and go to the Watering Hole next year because of your bio. It's also a great place to share your socials. Some places, when you get published, will ask you separately for social media links, but some won't. So I always put them in my bio just in case, so that people know, oh, okay, I can find out more on Maria's website, or I can go to Maria's Twitter, because that's Maria's literally social media. All right. So does anybody have any questions? I know we've got a lot of ground to cover, so don't hesitate. I am checking the chat. Our first activity is going to be, we're going to start writing a bio. Okay, I have some basic structures. And of course, you don't have to repeat your name every single time. You can use your pronouns, but here are some things that you can do. If you don't have anything like this, go back to your job, your hobbies, where you're from, what you want people to know about you, what you think people should know about you, what you don't really want people to know about you, but you're going to tell them anyway, right? Just go back to that and make something that feels authentic to you and your voice as a writer, and just capture that. All right. If you have a little bit of time, if you have a go-to writer, somebody you really love, go read their bio and get inspired by what they say. Yeah, that is a good question. All right, so I am going to give us 3 minutes. I'm sorry, because it's a fast workshop. So I'm going to give us until 2:22, and I am going to, oh yeah, thanks, Beverly. Thank you for coming. I'm going to type something to you, Paige, while I give us 3 minutes. All right. Yeah. Okay, that's all the time we have to sort of start a bio. I hope that was all right for you. When you get the slides, you can go back and you can take a look at my sort of quirky and serious bios, and hopefully that will be helpful as well, right? Because that's like the big thing from today, right? The bio is probably the most important thing. All right, so we're going to talk about newsletter, website, and social media. Now, I'm going to preface all of this with, I know that Twitter has imploded and it's really not in a good place, and I totally understand that. That being said, Twitter is still probably the foremost social media platform for writers to meet other writers. Maybe that will change in the future, but it's kind of changed a little bit, but it hasn't changed a lot yet. So I think writers are hoping for an alternative, but I'm not sure that there is an alternative out there yet. All right, so website. I love websites. I'm a huge proponent that everybody should have a website. And this is another Maria, I don't have anything to put on my website. Okay, if we did a longer class, I have some examples of some of my favorite writerly people, and they don't have anything published either. Maybe they have 1 or 2 credits, but they're just like coming soon. And they'll talk about their projects, they'll talk about what they like to write. It's really great. So yes, you could get the basics down of putting your website together before you have a lot of stuff to really put on it. Because it's, what do you put on there? Probably a bio, right? So now you have your bio, so you can put that on there. A picture of you, if you feel comfortable sharing, that's really nice to have on there too. They can connect, oh, that's that person. And then if you use the same picture for your social media, they're like, oh, it's that Maria. It's not this other Maria that I may have heard of, right? And a list of publications, if you have any. If not, yeah, I really like the coming soon. You can talk about your writing project a little bit more in detail. So that's something that's good to have on there. Why do I like to see that people have a website? As an editor, I use this all of the time to find out who I'm publishing, who I'm reading. If I love your work, like I read your work, I read the 1 publication credit you might have, and I'm like, wow, this person is a great poet. I want to go to your website because I want to see what you're working on. I want to get excited. I want to read more. So yes, if you have 2 credits and I read the first thing and I'm like, wow, that's a great poet, I can go to your website and I can read the second poem that you've published. That's great. I think that having a website that has clearly been updated sometime in the last 3 to 5. Okay, I'm kidding. Like the last year, like the person is still alive and they're updating their website, shows commitment to being a writer as a career. It shows that somebody is invested in having a web presence. They're invested in putting the time into their writing. And that's something you can do without even writing, which is great. Square and Weebly fused. So now it's Square/Weebly. That's what I use for my site. WordPress and Wix are the other 2 big ones. And I did not write that down, and I should have, but I'm going to take it in chat for you if you've never heard of these. You can start for free. You will get a domain name that's like mariaespiconi.wix.com or so. It's not going to be just like mariaespiconi.com, but that's a great place to start. You can start using the website builder tools. They made it really simple. You do not need anything fancy on your site. You're making text and maybe putting images and links. So it's not really any different than doing that in like a Word document. It took me a little bit to find one that clicked with me. For me, it was Weebly. Yeah, I really like to do that. Yes, and that is one thing. So I like updating my site, so I just do it. One thing I suggest in my website course is make a spring cleaning date. Set it on your calendar once a quarter, once every 6 months, to update your website and also to update your writer's CV. If you're not somebody like me, who the instant I get something good, I'm going to put it on my website because that's part of my celebration process when I get published or when I get an opportunity. It's really good to have that because that is part of writing. And that is something of writing that you can do on those days when your brain's tired from work, or it's too loud, or you just can't focus, or you just don't feel creative. So these are great things that you can work on for your writing career, even when you don't feel inspired, or more likely than the muse visiting you. It's like, I am so maxed out, I cannot look at my creative stuff. All right. Newsletter. It has many of the same benefits of a website. It might be something where you're subscribing to and or using an outside company of some sort to distribute it, to make it easier for you, like MailChimp, Substack, right? In that case, of course, your infrastructure is controlled by another company. So what you pay for that is up to them. What you get for that is up to them. And it could be hard to migrate from place to place. So to me, I don't have a newsletter yet. I might get one. The intimidating thing is like, I feel like I need to have something to put on it. So you could solve that by only putting out a newsletter when you get news, which is why it's called a newsletter. But of course, people are going to engage more if your newsletter has some sort of content of value. So this is like 2023 having a blog, right? People used to do this on blogs. They used to put out stuff and it's like, hey, this will drive traffic to me and my brand and my stuff. Okay, it should be something that you publish regularly. Even if you don't have an update, you could start by just saying, hey, I'm still working on my novel and now I'm on chapter 27. Yeah, no, I get you. I mean, I think it could be as simple as, like, for me, I might do one, let's say quarterly, with some events, any opportunities I've gotten, things that might be of interest to writers, and any publications that I've had. So it would be really simple, I think, really straightforward. But it really depends, right? Is this like a friends and family list and they're going to follow it to keep up with your writing? Is it for a wider audience and you want to eventually get like Substack subscribers, right? So I think it really depends on your audience, what you're going to do with your newsletter. One person that I know, Robin Markham, she's a poet. She lives in the Denver area, and I've taken some classes with her. She has a whole ecosystem, right? She talks a lot about poetry manuscripts. So she has a Substack where she interviews people and asks them how they put their manuscript together and like what their poetic process is like. And it's partly to get people to come to her courses, right? And to subscribe to her poet community, but it's also partly to, you know, be a resource. So she will talk about like things that she's done, but the main purpose is to be informational and helpful to other people. But I've also seen newsletters that are just like, hey, here's some cool things I'm up to, and here's some places where I'm teaching. Yeah. Yeah, that was Radha Markham. Yeah. And I did see your question, Iris, so I will get to that later. Okay, so social media. Unlike things like newsletter and website, there was a really open-ended time commitment. You could spend as little as 5 minutes a quarter on it, but most of us don't, right? It still requires a time commitment. And if you want to have a community and not just be somebody who's like on a megaphone, just like blaring out stuff, you have to engage with other people. Like, you can't just be like, hey, I'm publishing a book next week, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. You have to go on MP's socials and say, oh, MP, I love your book. I love your writing, right? You have to build relationships and kind of put that function in there. You can't just be a megaphone, right? Okay, those accounts, sometimes they get clicks, they get hits, whatever it is, they get comments, but they're not going to get as many comments as genuine engagement. And unfortunately, genuine engagement takes time. Another thing I see a lot, and this is a mistake that I made, like when I joined Twitter, I was like, wow, Twitter is really cool. I can learn about the news that's happening. I can follow my favorite baseball journalists. I'm a huge Red Sox fan. So I was like, this is great. But when people saw my Twitter and I was retweeting links from highlights of what happened at the game, and I was retweeting random stock news I thought was interesting and my writing, people were just like, okay, Maria, we like you, we kind of know you, but we want to hear about your writing. We don't necessarily want to hear about the other things that you're like super interested in, unless that's fueling your writing in some way. So for me, when I stripped my focus and I started just focusing on, okay, my Twitter is for writing, and sometimes I'll share something personal on there or something I like, but the majority of what I'm going to engage with is writing. I'm going to follow writers, lit mags, writing organizations, etc. That was when I saw growth. So what could you do? If you have a social media account and you haven't really done anything with it, you could clean it up, make your profile about writing, focus your account on writing, clean up who you're following, clean up your followers, or you could start a new one, right? You could start Maria S. Piccone Poet, right? That can be difficult. then you've got more accounts to maintain. So there's pros and cons to that, right? There's pros and cons to everything about social media. Why do I like it? Most of the reading opportunities that I've gotten to read for things, to edit, have been on social media. I've seen submission calls, I've seen calls for opportunities, including this opportunity at Mass Poetry on social media. I've seen job vacancies on there. I've seen recommendations, information. It's a great way to find a community of writers who will actually read your work and care about you. Unfortunately, it has all the pitfalls that social media has. It's addictive. You could have trouble gaining traction, or worse, you could gain too much traction and your whole life could be taken over by social media. And now you don't have any time for your writing or your family or your pets. I don't know, right? It happens. There's a lot of drama. Sometimes you'll get on and someone will be saying something and you don't know what it's about, but you kind of want to know what it's about. So then you start looking for it and then you fall into some sort of rabbit hole. It's really tough. This is one where I genuinely respect writers who don't use social media. I do not think that you have to use social media, but if you do, there are benefits to it. So what would I recommend for you? Most places, and by places I mean literary magazines and organizations, are still on the big three, right? They'll have a YouTube channel, but YouTube is maybe like social media adjacent. So they'll have a Facebook page, they'll have Twitter, and they'll have Instagram. You should get on there and follow them on there. Facebook groups I find are really helpful. So I now have a lot of my writer friends on my Facebook, which was originally meant to be personal. It happens. I have found a lot of opportunities through the Boston Writers of Color group. I'm in some other groups like Literary Cleveland has a group. Right, there's groups for local writers, there's groups for organizations, there's groups for people who have done things like I'm in a FONA alum group. People will post opportunities, they'll post their own writing, they'll post links to stuff. So I've learned a lot from those. Yes, you do you. Okay, so we're going to do a marketing plan exercise, and I will answer any questions that you have in the chat, including Iris's question. All right, you're just going to free write for 5 minutes. What feels right to me this time? What social media is in my comfort zone? Do not learn a new platform to become a writer. That doesn't make any sense. What are the steps that I would have to take if I want to make a website or start a newsletter or clean my social media and use my Twitter for writing stuff? All right, so you're going to answer these just real quick from the gut and then pick a goal that feels good to you. Maybe your goal is, I am going to use my Instagram for writing. Okay, if that's my goal, what are 3 steps I can do? I need to clean my Instagram. There's a lot of random things I'm following on there, like my favorite clothing brands. Okay, second step, I want to get a writer headshot on my Instagram, right? So just write down 3 actionable steps that you can take towards your goal, right? right. Um, yeah. So this is not a shameless plug, but if you hire someone to do your website, it's going to be like, I would not hire someone who doesn't know like what you need. If you have someone who can help you, like a friend who's tech savvy, it is not that difficult to get it started. You just create the account and you build like the basic page. It can even be one page, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, it's got like all these different things on it. Because what I found from a lot of website designers is they're not writers, and they think you need all these fancy bells and whistles, and they're going to try to sell them to you because they'll make more money, or they're charging way too much because it shouldn't take that long to get it started up. Now, of course, the downside to hiring someone to do it is that then you don't know how to do it, which is why I think that like one-on-one mentoring or having somebody to help you is better, because it's a process that is repeatable. If we have some time, I'll go into my website after this, and yes, where's my email? And it's also like you'll get these slides and stuff. But yeah, it's better if you know how to do some of it, because if you want to do updates, like I said, the updates are really not difficult either. I know it's really intimidating. So I'm not saying that it's easy as in everyone should be able to do it. I'm just saying that you don't want to pay a web designer like $100 to make you a site. There's no reason to do that if you have other options. All right. So artist statement. If you're applying to workshops, if you're applying to get money, a residency, other things, they're going to ask you for your artist statement. And this is another great thing to put on your website. Right. So along with your bio, that's like, oh, Maria lives in Charleston and she can't cook anything that involves more than one pot because her brain is too simple. Right. Now you've got your artist statement, which is sort of these basic things. Now, this is not the end all be all, because this is an hour-long workshop, but who are you? Not just like, oh, I'm Maria, but okay, some of the things that impact my writing are my intersectional identity. I've always felt a little bit like a duck out of water. So I write about that sort of stuff. So what do I write and why? Yes, I write about adoption. This is something that I do as part of my own personal process, but something that I believe can help and inspire other people, not just transnational adoptees, but anybody who has felt kind of in between to something, anybody who's grappled with longing. Yep, so this is different than the bio study. Yeah, definitely. Your 2 or 3 biggest influences. If you're writing about a specific project, that could be your influences for that project. If you're just writing in general, who are the poets you would take to a desert island with you? What books would you bring there? I would bring DMZ Colony. I'd bring Dictee. I would bring Ghost of by Diana Quinn Wynn. I would bring Homie by Dennis Smith. Right. So what, like, who influenced you? How did they influence you? Right. So you can say, my work, like Dami Choi's, uses intertextuality and historical context to sort of telegraph the meaning in poetry. Right. And what are you working on now? Right? What are your projects? This doesn't have to be something big and official that's like, I've signed a tax return saying that I'm working on a chapbook about this, but it could just be, I'm exploring eco poetry centered on my hometown. Right? Maybe I'm writing some linked poems on a topic, or I'm currently working on a group of sonnets. Right? This does not, it's not a college admission essay. It does not need to be academic and formal. You want it to sound like you. Okay, you want to edit it and proofread it and stuff like that, but you want it to sound like only you could write it. It is an artist statement. It's not a text form, right? So avoid the general, avoid anything that's like, I've always wanted to be a writer. No, tell me what it was that you did. Tell me what it was that made you want to be a writer or that made you inspired specifically, right? Like I could say, I have been obsessed with fantasy since the author Ari Salvatore came to my classroom when I was in first grade and talked about writing. Okay, that's me, right? That's like my voice. That's my thing, my experience. So just stay within your own voice. They want to read something that shows that you've thought about these things. And I know that it can be a little awkward because, again, you're talking about yourself and you're putting yourself in this canon of, yes, my work is exactly like Ross Gay's, okay, right? It can be a little bit like, oh, no. But everybody has influences. Everybody has things that they love to write about, right? Is it eco poetry? Is it experimental forms? Is it you love the Pantone? Yes, so artist statements are useful not only as something that can go on your website and shed more light on your work. Sometimes if you get accepted to an opportunity, they'll ask you for one. Sometimes when you're applying to a workshop, an educational opportunity, if you're applying to an MFA program, you'll definitely need one. Sometimes if you're applying for a grant, right, you want some money, you want a residency, so you want to go somewhere and write for a while, they're going to ask you for those types of things. So I'm going to Juniper Summer Institute for the second year in a row. I had to write one for that. The Watering Hole, Tin House. It's good to have one. And of course, like everything else here, when you have one or when you have started to have one, you can always modify it. So it's not like I wrote 5 different artist statements for 5 different opportunities. I took my artist statement and I tailored it for what I'm asking for and what's right for me at the moment, right? Like I want to go to Juniper and work on an eco poetry project. So I talked about that. So my influences, what I write and why, and my project, that was all focused on that specifically. It wasn't like, oh, I believe that my novel is blah, blah, blah. No, it's about my poetry chapbook. All right. Okay, so we don't have time to do like an activity, but this should be something that excites you. So if you can get past the, oh, I have to talk about myself. What are those things, right? This is like your superhero origin story. Where did you come from? Where are you as a writer? So this is a great thing to do to affirm yourself. And one thing that I like to do, and this is like a retroactive trick, is I like to use this when I'm stuck on a project. So if I'm writing a series of poems and I feel like, why am I writing this again? What is it about? What is it for? Does this poem that I wrote belong or does it not belong? I rethink about these things for my artist statement for that project. And that really helps me kind of make some headway and see, oh, okay, I'm obsessed with the idea of climate change coming and destroying the landscapes that I'm really attached to from my childhood. But I need to write more poems about that because that's not in the collection yet. Right. So it can be really helpful just for like yourself too, to turn that light on in your brain and get those juices flowing, that inspiration flowing for your themes. All right. CV. If you have an academic CV, you're probably more than half of the way there. It's the same thing. Now, people tell me they don't know what to put on it, especially when you've got a lot of different things going on, right? Because you're an interesting person. I have listed some categories that I think are relevant. Yes, no, that's perfect, Sunny. And this is a great example for the CV too. If you have professional experience that informs your writing, that can go on your CV. And it in fact should, especially because if you've done a lot of writing on mental health advocacy, not only, okay, great, you've done volunteer work, you've written copy, maybe you've done like actual paid work on it too. That's fantastic, right? Those are good things to put on there. Because if you're going to apply to be a Lit Mag reader, most often you're going to be working for a nonprofit, or even worse than a nonprofit, like a business, but it makes no money. So they want to see that you have that kind of experience, and having that toolkit is really good. Like having marketing, having writing, copy editing, writing for the web, those types of experience, like it's really, really good. So yes, if you have nothing on your CV that is adjacent to writing, you can still put any publications, right? You've written stuff that's published out in the world. Any honors and awards you've gotten, like scholarships from university, anything that's an opportunity, you can put your education on there. Easy stuff to put as a writer. Yeah, volunteer for a lit mag. There's tons of them. They need people all of the time. Find your favorite lit mags. Some of them on their website will have a section that's like volunteer or work to us. Yes, 500,000%. Craft talks, any events or classes, go to an open mic. Even if you pay $5 to read at an open mic, go read, put it on your CV. That is a writing centric event that you have gone to. Put this on your CV. Join a writing organization. There's a ton of them out there. My favorite two are Grub Street and Lighthouse Writers. They have helped me a lot. I wouldn't be here today without them. Okay, you have to pay to join. You get a lot of benefits in return. Discounted classes, free events, newsletters, like all different things, discounts, etc. It's really, really, really wonderful. So those are some small things that you can do to get from where you started to somewhere. And yeah, if you like photography or art, some literary magazines are always looking for art. Chestnut Review is always looking for art. We pay. My first publication credits and my intro to the publication process was through publishing visual art because I was too shy to submit my writing. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. I know that's a lot. You guys are going to get these slides. Mass poetry is wonderful. Thank you so much for the support. Yeah, I'll answer that in the chat as we wrap up, but I think we have to wrap up. Please, if you have questions, you can send me an email. I would be happy to work with you. And yeah, it's been really great. So thank you so much. All right, I'm going to stop my share.
Okay. So thank you again, everybody. Maria, you can feel free to put your socials and whatnot into the chat. Links for pre-sales for your book. You can put that in the chat as well. And everyone, can we please get just one last round of appreciation for Maria S. Piccone? Fantastic, fantastic.